as you guys can see, we're going to be talking about covert narcissists, right? And guess what I learned? Because I'm on a journey, I'm on a quest, right? To find out how narcissism work. But because I can tell you this, that there are different types of narcissists, and I did not know. And narcissist is a buzzword. And in the last few years, you used to hear, well, you still do, but you hear a lot of women saying, oh, you're a narcissist, everything, you're a narcissist. And honestly, some of them don't even know what a narcissist is, to be honest, right? And there are so many different types. And the one that, well, let's go back for a second. So a few days ago, I did an overview about narcissism. And the overview in which I did, I kind of like just browsed through everything. It was like about an hour long, right? So I kind of like browsed through everything, and let me get this. Yeah, so then a few days later, I did the overt narcissist, right? And today I'm going to be talking about covert narcissist. I have some videos to show. And let me tell you, what I learned so far is that the covert narcissist, according to what I've been researching, is the most dangerous one of them all, right? So I will run down the different type of narcissist, and then you guys can see the different types. So let me just run down the different type of narcissists. Give me a second. So the different type of narcissists are overt narcissist, the overt grandiose narcissist, the covert vulnerable narcissist, the malignant narcissist, the communal narcissist, and the antagonistic narcissist, right? So these are the different types of narcissist, or narcissism, should I say. And when I delved in the last 2 days reading about covert narcissism and going off of personal experience, I know which one I grew up under. And it is the covert vulnerable narcissist. So let me play a video, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to read the description of the covert narcissist. All right, so let me switch over here. All right, so let me pull that video up, and where did I put the video? Okay, so all right, play this video.
Often exhibits what I define as the queen.
Oh, sorry, let me go back.
The female narcissist often exhibits what I define as the queen bee syndrome, positioning herself as the central figure of authority, control, and admiration within her social or familial circles. She demands loyalty, obedience, and unwavering attention from those around her, often creating a hierarchy structure where she reigns at the top. In this dynamic, she expects others to cater to her needs and reinforce her sense of superiority while marginalizing or punishing anyone who threatens her dominance. The female narcissist with queen bee syndrome fosters competition and division among her quote unquote followers, ensuring that their focus remains on pleasing her rather than forming alliances that might challenge her power. This behavior not only isolates individuals, but also creates a toxic environment where manipulation and favoritism thrive. Her relentless need to maintain control and superiority often leaves those in her orbit feeling drained, unworthy, or expendable.
So, as there's a feedback, I don't know what's. So, as give me a second, guys. Let me do something here. As I hear feedback, and this one as well. All right. Hopefully that solve it. All right. So, yeah. This when I watched this video clip a few days ago, I was like, wow. It is the same familiar thing I experienced, right? And I can tell you this from the personal experience. It was a constant power struggle with how to keep the siblings divided and contentious, fighting against each other, right? For attention, because mommy wants the attention, right? Mommy wants the power. And I can tell you, based on what she says, it's that experience. And now that I am like talking about this, I can tell you I know which one. Not to say that there aren't other ones that have been exhibited in growing up, but this one speaks directly to what I've experienced. So I'm going to go to read about the female narcissist, right? So, okay, the covert female narcissist. Let me read about this one, right? Let me move myself away. So, the covert female narcissist. The covert female narcissist, also known as vulnerable narcissism, refers to a subtype of narcissistic personality disorder where individuals display narcissistic traits in a more subtle and less overt way than those with grandiose or overt narcissism. Key characteristics of female narcissism. All right, so let me read the first one. Let me highlight that one. All right, so masked grandiosity mean a person that's grandiose is a person that's excited, the life of the party, right? So they mask their grandiosity, right? They become very docile, the shy type, or pretend to be the shy type, right? So let's continue reading. Unlike overt narcissists who openly exhibit arrogance and a sense of superiority, covert female narcissists often hide their inflated self of importance behind a facade of humility, shyness, or even victimhood. Very familiar with that. Very, very familiar with that. Right? So let's continue. Highlight this. Victim mentality. Covert female narcissists frequently portray themselves as misunderstood or unappreciated, using this victim role to gain sympathy, manipulate others, and deflect responsibility. Very much so. I can tell you that firsthand, right? I'll give you a story. And this is kind of like a cute story, right? So a few years back, I was working, I went out to do a job. So on the way back, I thought of, I wonder if mom ate. And I called her. I said, Mom, have you had anything to eat yet? And she said, no, not really. And I said, okay, I'm going to buy whatever you want. Tell me what you want and I'll buy it for you, right? So she said she wanted oxtail. I said, okay, all right. So I'm going to buy oxtail for you and I'm going to buy chicken for you, right? So I'm going to buy 2 plates for you. She said, no, you don't have to buy the chicken. Just get the oxtail. You know, the chicken and the oxtail could be too expensive. I said, no, Mom, that's fine. I'll get the oxtail. She said, no, just go ahead and get the chicken. I said, all right, Mom. So I'm going to get a fish for me and I'm going to get the chicken for you. She said, all right, cool. So even though she said not to get the oxtail, I still went ahead and bought both the chicken and the oxtail and also the fish for me. So I brought the food and I went into the kitchen and she said, oh, you brought the chicken and the oxtail? I said, yes, right? And she said, so what did you get for yourself? I said, I got fish, right? She said, oh, okay. I said, which one do you want? You want the chicken or you want the oxtail? She said, I'll take some of the oxtail, but she said it in Jamaican power, like, me take some of the oxtail, right? And so I said, okay. So I dished some of the oxtail out and I serve it to her. And then I go and I separated my plate of food into 2, right? And I'm passing her now to go sit down and eat. And she said, you're not going to give me a piece of your fish? I said, no, Mom. I asked you what you wanted. I told you it doesn't matter. Just tell me what you want and I'll buy it. I said I was going to buy the oxtail and chicken for you. And you said, no, just get the chicken because the oxtail is too expensive. But I went ahead and I bought the oxtail and the chicken. I gave it to you. And now you're going to ask me for a piece of my fish when you know I don't eat meat. I'm allergic to it. She turned and said, oh, you're not supposed to be so mean to your mother. I said, wait a second here. I just bought oxtail and chicken for you, right? And 1 fish for me. You got 2 different types of food and 1 fish for me, which I split in 2. And you still want a piece of my fish when you said not to buy you any fish? She said, yes, you're not supposed to be so mean to your mother, right? And did you know, because I did not give her a piece of my fish, I told her no, because she have her oxtail, she's eating right now, and she has a chicken in the fridge. She's not going to get any of my fish. She turned around and told me, you are too mean. You're selfish. I said, wow, I won't be doing this for you anymore, right? That's what I said to myself. I didn't say that to her. And after that, I did not buy anything for her to eat. If she wanted food, she need to find a way to get her own food. Because for me to take the time to call her and find out if she ate all day and then brought food for her, and then she's going to tell me that I'm mean because I didn't give her a piece of my fish. That's the subtle manipulative tactics that is used for control. Use sign language to control their victims, right? Shame, insult, and the need to be right. Sign language. Shout out to Kevin Samuels, right? So let's continue. Let's scroll down and continue this. Yeah, that was a very interesting story that I had to share, right? Subtle manipulation. They utilize indirect and subtle manipulation tactics such as passive aggressiveness, gaslighting, triangulation, and emotional withdrawal to control others and maintain a sense of power. Let me talk about emotional withdrawal, and then I'm going to talk about triangulation, right? So, emotional withdrawal, remember I just mentioned about the fish, right? So, the fact that I didn't give her any other fish, she decided that she's going to malice me, meaning she's not going to talk to me for the next few days. My mother ignored me all the way, right? In because I did not give her my fish. And not only that she ignored me, she started taunting me, right? Antagonizing me, right? And withdraw any form of communication. Not only that, the chicken that I bought for her and the half of the oxtail that was placed in the fridge, my mother decided she's not going to eat it. So she let it stay in the fridge and spoil just to spite me, right? So it stayed in the fridge for, I think, 6 days until it was eventually thrown out because it started going bad. So both the oxtail and the chicken was thrown in the garbage, right? So that's that withdrawal for a sense of power and control, right? So let's talk about triangulation, right? Triangulation is a multifaceted concept with different meaning depending on the context. In general, it involves using multiple sources of method to gain a more comprehensive, accurate understanding of situation where there is. Okay, let me go and talk about it in terms of how it's used. All right, let's break down triangulation for triangulation in relationships, right? And then I bring it over and I read it. So, in relationships. Uh, all right, so let me bring this over and I can put it on the screen and we can read it together. All right. So I don't know what's that. Why is it doing that? That feedback. All right. Hopefully that fixed it. All right. So in the context, triangulation in relations, let me highlight this. Let me bring it up and highlight this. All right. So in the context of relationships, particularly family dynamics, triangulation refers to a pattern where a third party is drawn into a conflict or tension between two individuals. Often to shift focus away from the primary conflict or to create a more stable, if sustained dynamic, especially a two-person emotional system, it seems as unstable and under stress. Individuals may triangulate by involving a third party to create a three-person system. Here are more details. So, Murphy-Brown family therapy. Triangulation is a key concept in family system therapy particularly as developed by Maury Browen. So let me put it in layman's terms so you can understand what triangulation is. Essentially, if you call someone out that did something to you, and you say, hey, you did this to me, right? They would say, hey, let's pull up 3 names. They say John, Paul, and Harry. John, Paul, and Harry. So John and Paul had an issue, right? And John started something with Paul. And Paul expressed to John how he feels, right? So what he decided to do, instead of owning up to what he did, he now bring the third person in and say, hey, did you see what he saw? Because I didn't do what he said, right? And even if the third person said, yes, you did. Yes, you did. That first person, the one that caused the issue, is going to say, no, I didn't mean it that way. So they rather than facing up to what they did, they obfuscate what they did by shifting it and bringing in someone to help them to essentially clear their face so they can feel good about themselves. So they obfuscate any responsibility of owning up to what they did wrong to the person that they did the wrong to. All right, let's jump back now. All right, here we are again. All right, so let's scroll down and highlight this. Continue on with the female narcissist. Need for validation. Despite their subtle approach, they have a constant need for admiration and validation from others to boost their fragile self-esteem. Right? Now imagine doing something wrong to someone, and you clearly know that you did something wrong to someone, right? Or it was done to you. Clearly, you felt the insult or the disrespect or the blatant disregard, and so you call it out, right? However, they're going to say, I'm sorry you feel this way. I'm sorry you feel like as if I did harm to you, right? And all you're looking for is for them to just honestly say, I'm sorry for what I did. They know what they did, but they won't say, I'm sorry. They say, I'm sorry for you feeling that I did something to you, right? So they have that subtle approach, right, where you must admire them, and if you don't admire them, they are going to invalidate your presence, right? Because their self-esteem must be validated at all time. All right, let's continue. Lack of empathy. They struggle with genuinely sorry, let me read that again. Lack of empathy. They study with genuinely understanding or share the feelings of others, focusing primarily on their own needs and experiences. They don't empathize. You could be crying blood. They're not going to care. They will tell you things like, go kill yourself. They'll say things like that. I've been told that by an ex who is a narcissist, right? You know, they always say that we tend, as people, we tend to look for the people that are just like our parents, right? And make you wonder, like, why 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 do we do that? Why do we end up seeking out the very people that are like our parents, right? Make you wonder, like, why, right? And it is because you're so familiar with that personality, subconsciously you reconcile that behavior or whatever feeling that that behavior caused you to experience. You reconcile it. And then when you go out to find someone, you tend to find the same type of person that your mother or your father is like, right? And you're like, man, how did I end up with this type of person? This person is just like my mother. Or a woman would say, this person is just like my father, right? We because we have the familiarity of the experiences with our parents, we tend to look for that, right? Doesn't matter if it's bad for us. You know, my stepdad used to say, boy, you're going to pick and pick until you pick shit. And I could say this much. I picked shit a few times, right? But then in this journey of discovering about narcissism, a narcissist, and the different types, I realized I reconciled the behaviors of and condition of how I grew up. And so I have this I'm going to save somebody type. It's like I become overly empathetic, and when I meet someone that portrays certain characteristics of my mom, I go into, I don't know, subconsciously, I could fix this person, right? As they say, sorry for how I was going to say, but you know, the normal term out there in our everyday speech, in people's everyday speech, is Captain Save a Hoe, right? I don't mean it in any disrespect to anybody, but that's the saying for a lot of people. So I go into subconsciously thinking I can fix someone that have the traits of the traits of the regime of how I grew up, right? Thinking I could save that woman that I'm involved with. But let's continue, right? So the next one, let me highlight this. And like say, when I say, you know, if you want to call in, you can call in. As you can see the numbers on the screen, and I will say call in at some point, or if you have the number, you can send a text and I will call. So let's continue. Relationship difficulties. Their manipulative tendencies, emotional withdrawal, and lack of empathy can create challenging and emotional draining relationship. Wow. This journey is an awakening for me. This journey is an awakening for me. I have to read this one again. All right? Relationship difficulties. Their manipulative tendencies, emotional withdrawal, and lack of empathy can create challenging and emotionally draining relationship. You know, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Cappy, yesterday, and shouts out to Cap. And I watched the video a couple of days ago, right? And it says, "Do you want to know how?" Actually, I did a show and I played a video in that show when I did an overview of narcissism. Do you want to know how you are getting over a narcissist? When you become intolerant and you have a lack of patience for anyone that's displaying these behaviors or any sort of these behaviors, you don't have the patience anymore. You start becoming agitated much quicker because you realize the signs, right? And from understanding and realizing the signs, I realize that I'm going through that part, that emotional withdrawal from the symptoms that has caused me. Let me tell you, friends, listen, as a grown man, they say, you know, the saying is that man shouldn't cry, right? Because if we cry, we are weak. But I don't care. Listen, I grew up in a regime where if I said no, I get my ass whipped for saying no or disagreeing with something. I must agree or else, right? And imagine, you know, and my mother is my personal experience of, you know, she's one, and then I have another one that I was in a relationship with, and I can tell you this: the familiarities, the similarities was very uncanny, right? And those that know me know because I've expressed this to them. But let me tell you, if I was asked to do something, I give you a great example. I have so many. I was asked to cook dinner for my siblings when I was just about 17, right? Scrawny, skinny guy, tall but skinny. And my mom was a former cop, strong, strapping, aggressive, right? So I had no power over her. She can just grab me by my collar and just twist my collar and pull me towards her, and it's like I'm a rag doll, right? So she asked me to cook dinner for my siblings. Now, I said, Mom, I can't because I have homework to do. I have an essay and I have to have it completed and turn in tomorrow, right? I can't. Please, I can't, right? So I'm working on my essay. I'm sitting around the dining table and I'm working on my essay. And she called home. And back in those times, it was a house phone. And she called home. And my sister answered the phone. The one that's and it's me and then my sister and then my other sister and then my brother. And so the sister below me answered the phone. And she said, uh, did he cook? Did your brother cook? And she said, no, Mom, we're hungry. Can you bring home something? And she said, he what? He didn't cook? So she said, I heard her yell in the phone, give him the phone. So she gave the phone to me. And she said, boy, didn't I tell you to cook dinner? I said, Mom, I could not cook dinner. I have an essay to work on. And if I don't finish it, I'm going to fail the class. This is a requirement for everybody in the class. You know, when I talked about in the video before, I talked about how my mom had left work, come home and whip my behind for something she asked me to do and I wasn't able to do it, right? I actually, I talked about me cleaning the house, going to my friend's house and hang out for the rest of the day. My sister, the one that's beneath me, would always tell my mom that if I did something, she would tell my mom that she did it. Because once she did that, mommy would always give her money, right? So she knew that. And then when I get home, my mom would tear my behind up. She'd wait until I get in the shower and take in a shower. She'll have the belt soaking in oil, right? Cooking oil. And she'll come in the shower and she start tearing my ass up in the shower, right? And I'm trying to grab the belt, and every time I grab it, she pulls it, it just slides out of my hand because it's been soaking in oil. I remember so many things, right? So I can say this. She left work, came home, and whipped my behind. I still remember exactly how it went. Still remember exactly how it went. I could not cook meal for my sibling that day, right? My mom didn't have to go to work until, I think she didn't have to get to work until, I think 4 o'clock. So she was home the whole day. But what she was doing is watching her daytime talk show, right? And I guess she must have forgotten to cook. So what I did when she tore my behind up and then left and tell me I need to cook or else, I cooked, but I burnt the food purposely. Yeah, I burnt the food purposely because I'm like, wait a second here. You leave work and you're gonna come home and you're gonna tear my behind up because I didn't cook when I already told you I could not do it because I had my essay to do and I have to put all of my focus in my essay. That's a story, right? That's a story. And let me tell you, my body had wells over it, right? Going to school, put my clothes on, going to school and sitting back, the pain that I felt on my body, I would sit down in class and tears would start running down my eyes. So when I was earlier, I was saying about I'm a grown man, and they say a man is not supposed to cry. Sometimes I'm walking by myself, right? And the thoughts of because I realize that I'm going through the emotions of the experience because I've been around it for so long, and then trying to be a good son, and then nothing, no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter what I did, was never enough. Never enough. Right? I could save my mom from falling and cracking her skull open, and she will turn around and give my sister the praise. And I realize. So now when I walk and the thoughts are going through my mind, I realize I'm shedding the emotions where I don't care anymore. So it's like it's bleeding out of my soul and tears run down my eye. But let's continue. Enough about that. All right, let me see something. All right. All right, examples in relationship. All right, let's scroll down here. So I'll highlight all of this and then I'll read them. So examples in relationship: passive aggressive, giving backhanded compliments or using sarcasm. That's one, passive aggressive. Emotional withdrawal, creating distance to make their partner anxious, right? I don't really like this word partner, spouse, right? creating distance to make their spouse anxious and more eager to regain connection. Right? So, what that means in this one is because they're so anxious, what did I do? What did I say? How can I fix it? And that's all that's going through your mind because you're trying to figure out what you did wrong. What did I do wrong? Right? So you're always on edge. You ever hear the term walking an eggshell? Yeah, that's what this is talking about. Let's continue. Playing the victim. Now this one, playing the victim. Listen to this one because this one is one of those manipulative tactics that can be detrimental for the actual victim of a narcissist, of a covert narcissist, right? They will do something to someone else, and then when that someone else calls it out, then the narcissist plays the victim as if it was done to them, right? Trust me, I know about that so well, right? I dealt with that for a very long time. All right, let me read it. Playing the victim, exaggerating hardship or vulnerabilities to elicit sympathy and manipulate others. So they'll do stuff like, they know they did something wrong and you call it on this. What did I do wrong? What are you talking about? What did I do wrong? You're always blaming me for stuff. I didn't do that. Knowing that they did it. Knowing that they did it. Right? And sometimes if you don't catch them on camera, they're not recorded, you can't prove it. And they'll make the world, they'll let the world, or make the world, they'll believe it, they'll believe their own lies and make everybody else believe it. And when they tell that lie to someone else, the other person turn on you and thinking that you are the person that's doing this person wrong. So let me tell you, man, let me tell you, imagine, you know what, I do one better. Think about being in school or watching a show where you see a girl or boy sitting towards the front, right? And somebody ball up a piece of paper and throw it and hit the person in the back of the head, hit the girl, little boy, little girl in the back of the head, right? And then push their hand in their pocket or put their head down on the desk, right? And then the person that got hit turn around and look, who did that? Who did that? And then somebody else says, Tom did it, or Lisa did it. And then they're confronted and they said, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. You did it. You threw the paper. They will blame everybody else but themselves, right? Because why? They have to play the victim. So now they will create a scenario as to why they are the victim, because you did it, so they did it, when you never did it in the first place. It's just that they needed to antagonize you and then play the victim. But let's continue. Let's go to gaslighting. And, you know, gaslighting is a buzzword, just like the word narcissism. It's a buzzword. Narcissist, it's a buzzword. But let's talk about gaslighting. Denying or distorting reality to make others question their own perception. Listen, that one, let me read it again. Gaslighting, denying or distorting reality to make others question their own perception. How could I explain gaslighting? I know. Imagine you going on a date and the person says, hey, the food comes and they order the food and you already tell them like, hey, you can order what you want, but use your conscience. And they order, right? They ate what they want, but they also ordering more food and they're bagging that food to take it. And you ask them, what are you doing? Oh, this food is for me to take home for later. And you said, so much food for you for later? Why are you questioning it? We're on a date, but we're on a date just to buy food and get to know each other, not for you to be buying food and taking home what appears to seem like you're taking that food for someone else, right? And then they'll make you feel guilty for even thinking that what you see is actually happening. What you're seeing is not what you're seeing. There is fire, but no, what you must be seeing is cool AC breeze blowing. That's what gaslighters do, right? So let's continue. The next one, blaming others, refusing to take responsibility for their own actions and shifting blame onto others. Now, how many of you know someone like that? A person like this is in your family. A person like this is a friend or could be a friend. What I call people like this, I call them frenemies, right? They always find a way to shift the blame to you. It's as if I tell you what I could combine to make you understand how it works. Playing the victim, as I read before, as you can see there, playing the victim, and gaslighting. Combining those two together, right? And which create blame shifting. So what you're seeing, you're not seeing. And it's, oh, I didn't do that. You're making me look like I did something. No. They know what they're doing. So now they're blaming you for making them own up to what they're actually doing to you. Understand that. All right. So let me scroll down. Let me undo that and scroll down and read about impact on long-term relationship. Now I told you I grew up in a regime where the impact on me created this deep-seated uneasy feeling where I would feel less than, right? Rather than being uplifted by my parent, I was always made to feel less than. The most condescending things were said. You wouldn't understand unless you know me, unless you've actually experienced, you grew up with me and you know my family. But I'm doing this video because this will help other people, and I'm hoping that someone one day will see it and says, oh shit, this guy, he's talking the truth. He went through what I'm going through, right? My journey is real. And when I finish this journey of going over, I'm going to start talking about the things that actually happened when I was growing up. Some of them, my brother told me not to, right? He told me, don't talk about it because it's family, right? And another friend of mine, she said, talk about it because it will help other people, right? And even while I'm talking right now, I'm really nervous because when I come out and start talking about it, some people that are watching or watch it later will start, I think tears will run out their eyes when they hear me speak some of the things that was done to me, right? But let's continue. So let me highlight this. Impact. All right, let me highlight this. All right, impact on relationship. Long-term relationship with covert female narcissists can lead to chronic self-doubt, hypervigilance in the partner, and emotional damage, partner, spouse, child, right? Emotional damage. And let me tell you, emotional damage, right? Right? I'm kind of effed up, but I've learned how to control it, right? People that knows me would say, yo, so shy, I don't understand. You turn out to be the most sanest one in the family, right? Because they know how I grew up, right? People that, older woman that know me, an older man that know me, that knows the family, knows my mother, knows my stepdad and her last husband, and knows me, knows my brother that got deceased. They know what I'm talking about, right? But so let me say this so you can understand, right? Earlier I said walking an eggshell. Come to find out, it's actually in this paragraph. But let me continue reading. Victims may feel like they are constantly walking an eggshell and find it difficult to have a reciprocal relationship. So the relationship is only one-sided. The narcissist must get all the supply. I was the narcissist supply, right? Battered and bruised and brutalized, right? Disrespected, degraded, right? I always felt like I'm walking an eggshell. Like I would want to, no, I would do the very thing that I said I will not do again, right? Because out of fear of retaliation, right? Because always something would be done, right? I'm gonna drop a nugget in there because a lot of this is gonna come out later on. Imagine knowing you did nothing wrong, but because the siblings are pinned against each other, one is favored more, two are favored more than the other two. One of the things I experienced that it made me so much on edge, right? Not only that I was walking an eggshell, but I felt like I was sleeping on an eggshell, right? Many nights when I was younger, my mom would wait until I go to bed, deep in my sleep, and she would come in the room and whip my ass, right? I would jump out of my sleep getting battered on with a belt, right? I don't know what I did wrong. Don't know what I did wrong, right? Come to find out, my mom was told something by one of my other siblings that wasn't so. Why? Because she wanted to get money. So she created a story, right? And out of anger and retaliation, I would then do stuff back to her, right? But I won't get so deep into those things, right? I just use it as an example, right? So not only I was walking on eggshell, I was sleeping on eggshell, right? Let me continue here. Let me undo this. After I read this, I'm going to play the video, right? I have another video of a doctor talking about 4 different elements of narcissist, and he's going to give a more in-depth understanding. So my rant is my rant, but I want to make sure that I'm filling in some gaps with actually a professional giving some back information of possibly how a narcissist is created. I know some truths of how my mom got to the point where she is, and how others, because of my journey learning about narcissism, right? All right, so let me read this and then jump into that. So, important notes. Let me highlight this. And those of you that are watching, thank you for watching, right? All right, important note. It's crucial to remember that this information describes patterns and tendencies associated with covert narcissism. Not every woman exhibit these traits necessarily has NPD, and only a qualified mental health professional can provide a diagnosis. So that's a note that I wanted to read off, right? So, of course, a public service announcement is included in it. If you believe you are in a relationship with someone who may be exhibiting narcissistic traits, it's important to seek professional help and support to protect your emotional well-being. Because if you don't, it will F you up. My resilience and perseverance is your assistance. Let me say that again. My resilience, that just came to me. My resilience and perseverance is your assistance. Because what I'm doing, what I'm saying right now is assisting you in hoping that if you are experiencing any behaviors that is tearing you down, seek help. Get a support system that could help you handle and get out of those crises, because it will kill you. It doesn't matter if it's a friend or family member, it will tear you down. And some people get jump on using substance, right? Or they just unalive themselves, right? A lot of that is happening, right? So let's jump over here now. And let me play this video. All right, let me expand this. Here it goes.
Now, again, in this video, I'm going to discuss the 4 components that make up covert narcissism, and that's going to be their self-concept. We'll talk about interpersonal aspects, social aspects, how they like to present socially, and what is their ethicality, what's their ethical components. And the whole idea is so that you can learn this, again, if it's in yourself or those that you know. So let's get started. So the first one, let's talk about self-concept. Now in your covert narcissism, their self-concept, they tend to hold on to this idea of inferiority, a lot of self-doubt. They often feel very ashamed, very fragile, and they're sensitive to any setback and criticism. So often what happens is that they're set off into something and they start to suffer. They start a wheel of see how I suffer. And this wheel of see how I suffer is that they suffer more than anyone else. And that's where that narcissism comes in, and that's why it's kind of hard to identify, is because they're often that I suffer more than anyone else. My suffering is unique. My suffering makes me special in a way because I suffer more than anyone else ever has. Treatment-wise, they're very, very complex people to treat. A lot of times it's that recognition of that core concept, of which is their self-concept of inferiority, self-doubt, feelings of shame, fragility, as well as that's sensitive to setbacks and criticism. So treatment is very tricky because we want to get to that self-concept. Now, what about interpersonally, right? When they interact with others. So a lot of times they don't depend on others, they don't trust others, right? They're very distant because they have that internal, that core self-concept of sort of that inferiority, self-doubt, shame, other types of issues, and a lot of envy of others' talents, possessions, and capacity for deep relationships is often impaired. I did a video on jealousy and envy. I'll put a link here if you're interested in that. But here for these folks, interpersonally, often, well, why does he or she get that?
Extract Pro is like a cheat code for instant warmth, color, and depth in your mix. There's no reason to stop, so got a feeling like.
And if there are components of antisocial components. Sometimes they can be very passive aggressive, very destructive, and act out in a way to hurt those, and not necessarily physically hurt, not always, but in some cases, but could be financially hurt, socially embarrassed, whatever it is, that they use that. So interpersonally, that they're very envious, so they want to take that person out, take them down. And then there's a lack of regard for boundaries. And often what happens is you see this, is that these folks are often calling you all the time about how hard it is for them, how much they suffer. And it becomes very one-sided conversations. And in these conversations, they're telling you how much they suffer and how much they hurt and all these other things that they don't hear your side of it or issues that you have. So every time you have a conversation with them, they turn it to their suffering, their pain, their experience, which is so vast.
That is so true, right? They have to be the center of attention. You could be talking about something that happened to you that day, right? And it could be something fun or it could be something severe. They will turn it around because the center of attention needs to always be on them. I would say, why every time I tell you something, you always have to shift it around back to you? Like, you never did what I'm talking about, so how is it it's your thing, right?
Fast and so intense and is so much more than anyone else that no one else can understand how unique their suffering is. And the last one is they have disregard for others' time. So if they know that you're out on a special date with someone, or if you're having a special time with your kids or your family, they might show up. They might show up at work in a big meeting and be like, look, I'm suffering, or show up crying at your at a party that you're at, or a social engagement, to draw that attention, because that covert narcissist needs to be seen as special for how much they hurt. So interpersonally, they're very destructive as well. Now, what about socially? These folks are nagging a lot. They nag continually. Little vocational commitment. A lot of times they may change jobs very quickly. Very little commitment to one sort of vocational track or skill track in order to, so their finances are often waxes and wanes. There's a lot of multiple superficial interests. So one day they might be interested in computers and then coding, and then the next day they want to be a film director, and the next day they want to be, an actor or actress or whatever it may be. So it's all these superficial interests, and they don't really dive deep into anything, because again, that narcissistic, covert and overt, is fear that if I get involved and if I try, I'll find out and fail. And they're often very afraid of that. So that's why for most narcissists, covert and overt, they have very, very little vocational attainment, very little, because they're afraid that they'll fail. Okay? And a lot of chronic boredom. And they expect the world to entertain them. Now, then we're back to covert narcissists, that they expect to be entertained. Now, your overt narcissist is also like this as well, is they expect the world to entertain them. Well, I'm bored, so do something I like. We're supposed to seek out what we like on our own. That's because we know that we like it. These folks don't do that. They have chronic boredom. Entertain me, keep me interested, because that's your job. Otherwise, I am the most bored, and I suffer the most through my boredom than anyone ever has. I'm the most bored that anyone has ever been. And that could be a common statement or theme that you would see with these covert narcissistic individuals. And the last component is ethically. Where are these folks ethically? Now, they'll often shift their value in order to gain favor with those that may shine, those that they see achieving particular things that they deserve, that they feel they deserve. A lot of lying, a lot of pathological lying, misrepresentation of self is very common for your covert narcissist, also your overt as well. And a lot of delinquent tendencies, acting out, destruction.
Wow.
Certainly emotional destruction, certainly can be property destruction. Very little regret for their behavior because it's your fault they behave that way. There's no sense of that responsibility. And we see this in both types of narcissism, overt and covert. And so they're not going to be like, you know what, I really overreacted, it's my fault, or if you've experienced a loss, they don't care, because your attention should really be on them. And if you're like, look, I'm suffering, I'm going through something, like, oh, it's always about you. You never care how much I suffer, except you've spent years listening to them talk about how they've suffered. So they don't see that, right? They don't, it's that impairment in perception of self, that impairment in insight, which is that universal component across all personality disorders, is impairment in insight. And last is that disrespect of authority. Now, your covert narcissist feels that, as well as your overt, that they feel like no one should tell them anything because they know everything. Your covert narcissist is, if they are impacted by authority, who is this person to hurt me this way? Who is this person to drive me with so much pain and injustice? Could be cries for injustice. You'll see that they'll often make claims of social injustice. And
Yo, hey man, wow. It's like I am listening to my experience. Wow. Wow. The journey's real. I am learning so much. You know, what I purposely made sure I didn't do, because I wanted my reaction, my outburst or my surprise to be as authentic as possible. So I didn't watch the videos before. I pull it up, watch probably like maybe about 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, this is good, right? Skim through it, but I won't really watch the video. Wow, he's talking about, well, let's continue.
And they're not really founded.
If you want to learn how to edit really well from professional Hollywood editors, we're going to show you the stuff that nobody else is teaching. I'm talking about real creative skills, like how you can use music and sound design to make a joke funnier.
Get rid of this.
So you're sort of like, well, that's their perception, but remember that lack of insight, so they only see how they're hurt and their loss. So those are those four components: self-concept, interpersonal, social, as well as ethical. Now remember, like all disorders, covert narcissism is on a continuum. So you have mild, moderate, severe, and extreme. Now the way that you would determine where these individuals are, severe, covert narcissism is on a continuum. So you have mild, moderate, severe, and extreme.
Wow.
Now the way that you would determine where these individuals are on that continuum is sort of by the degree of the expression of those traits. Okay, as well as the degree of impairment and socioeconomic dysfunction. How destructive to their own life are these individuals? Is their social world really adversely impacted? And that helps to determine where they are in that continuum. How about their economic life, right? Are they able to earn a living stable? Are they able to have a job, stable income? Now, the more stability they have, the lower they are in that continuum. Could be mild, below moderate, okay? And the more destructive they are, the higher they are, which could be severe or extreme. Now, if you feel that some of these aspects are representative of you, or someone in your life, you may want to seek out mental health treatment to sort of explore this. And what is it about these individuals that you're keeping in your life, or about yourself? What are some of those things that you can look at and assess to do things differently for yourself if you feel like these components relate to you, so that you're not operating from that self-concept component, that core concept of inferiority, shame, doubt, fragility, and this sort of sensitivity to setbacks. That how can you overcome that? By building this sense of self-concept, by doing things differently for yourself. No one else can do it for you. A significant other who loves you very much will not be able to change your self-concept, and you cannot change someone else's self-concept if they are not willing to do so. So it's important to realize that. Sometimes that's a really hard thing for a lot of my clients to come to terms with, is I can't change him or her. I can only change me. And that's a hard thing, because a lot of choices have to be made once you come to that realization. And I hope that you've enjoyed this video.
Yeah, that is true. Like, you know, in the first video that I did in this series, where I did the overview, what I said in the title is, let me look at it so I can read it, right? So what I said in the title is narcissistic abuse, right? The silent epidemic. Don't try to, let me actually, you know what? I'll bring it over so you guys can see it. I'll bring it over so you can see it. Let me come over here and minimize this and drop it here. Right, so as you can see in the title, right, it says, let me expand this so you can see it. All right. So as you can see, it says, narcissistic abuse, the silent epidemic. Don't try fixing a narcissist. Fix yourself, right? So oftentimes we will, that's the first video I did, right? Because I said I was gonna do this journey because I need to heal. I need to understand what's going on. I know what's going on, but I need to understand what went on in my life and what other people are experiencing, right? So that's why I did this video. And so you guys can go back and watch it. It's just a little bit over an hour long, right? Let me come back over here, right? So, all right, folks. Now, the number is on the screen. Please call. Let's have a conversation. Even if you're shy, your face is not going to be on the camera, right? I'm the only so shy here. You know, Guard's so shy. So let me be the shy one, right? Call 1-844-PUT-ME-ON or 1-844-788-6366. Call and let's have a conversation, right? I see a few of you in here watching. So call. I want to talk to someone. You know, maybe you have an experience, right? So hopefully you'll do that. 1-844-788-6366. So the lines are open. You can call and we can have a conversation. Right? So let me say, man, this is just fascinating, the things I've learned. And don't get me wrong, right? Don't get me wrong. The male narcissist is very similar in the same way, right? The male narcissist is very similar in the same way, right? The reason why a female narcissist is a lot more powerful in sense, I'm using that word deliberately, right? Powerful in sense is because we're in the age of feminism. And we're in the age of believe all women. And so when a female narcissist says something, is believe her because she's telling the truth. And oftentimes it's not. There's a personality out there that's called histrionic personality. And if you know who Johnny Depp is or Amber Heard, you'll know who and you're familiar with that situation, you'll understand what histrionic personality is. Histrionic personality is a severe narcissism, right? Is basically a combination of the vulnerable covert narcissist and a bit of overt narcissism, and also it's the narcissist that is a malignant and also antagonizing narcissist. So it's a combination of few narcissistic traits that create that, right? So we have the male narcissist as well, right? So, folks, call in. Let's have a conversation, right? Let's have a conversation. Right? Let's have a conversation.